Adam Graham. I run a business development consultancy called Grey Matters, and we effectively help small, early stage sort of startup businesses, freelancers, or onto sort of larger agencies to position themselves to build a new business strategy and to grow. One of the packages and things we do is around sort of the freelance community and giving them the sort of stepping stones to develop their own story, then move that into sort of a sales and marketing strategy, and then onwards into growth. So I've invited a couple of people to come along and talk to us about their journeys and how they've transitioned or are transitioning or thinking about transitioning. I'm not going to put words into their mouths about where they are on that journey. And I guess everybody's on their own sort of journey of self-discovery and where they could be, whether they're just sort of starting up or thinking about it in the future. So, so I've got Mary Ann Horgan, who's, been a part of our mastermind group. So she's going to be talking about, she's a brand and copywriting sort of specialist. And then Clair Heaviside, who has also been on her journey. She's co-founder of The Light, based up in Manchester. She's been on that journey, slightly more established now. And then also John Ashton, who runs and founded The Kitchen Table, which is a community of, to help freelancers to build their businesses and grow. So that's all probably from me. I'm going to sort of put questions to those guys and sort of find out a bit more about their own stories. And I guess I'll just start with you, Claire, if that's all right, just to sort of pick, and then we can all jump in. But so when did you first know that you wanted to be more of an agency than a freelancer, and kind of what drove that decision?
So I worked at an agency in Manchester called Cube 3. I was there for about 6 years as marketing director, and so grew a team there. So really had a sense of being entrepreneurial, but within an agency environment, which I really loved and kind of thrived in that. I left that role in 2018 in the summer for various reasons. 6 years is a long time to be with an agency, first of all, and it felt like the right time to move on. In the life cycle of agencies, things were kind of changing, and I didn't necessarily feel it was going the right direction for me. So I left quite without much of a plan, and went freelance for a year. And I found that a really great time to kind of recenter around the work that I love doing. And to be honest, I probably could easily have just carried on in that way, and working with some great clients and doing good work and getting paid more than I was in my agency role. I was doing pretty well. For me, it was more about the type of clients that I was able to work with and the depth of service I was able to provide. So the key thing that happened for me was one of my old team members, he also left the agency and started freelancing. So really my journey from freelancer to agency was about finding the right co-founder and collaborating with him, being able to offer a broader service to our clients. And we founded the agency, The Light, in September 2019. We're actually going through a transition period of our own now, and our own kind of growth, where we're repositioning The Light, and we've got a new brand coming out and a new agency identity and everything else that should be out next week, which is quite exciting. So it's kind of an ongoing process. But for me, to answer your question, Graham, the key thing really was around finding people that I really wanted to work with, who had the same type of vision as me. And that was the crux and foundation of starting an agency, moving on from being a freelancer.
Okay, so yeah, I can see that with the sort of depth of service and obviously finding a partner. And some people go with a partner, some don't. Yeah. Mary, you're kind of on this journey as well at the moment. Is it about the grass is greener? I know you've had decisions where you've thought, is it the right thing to do? Should I not bother? Like, where are you at, and what do you think is influencing some of your decisions?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what you value. So if I was just really instinctively answering, is the grass greener? I'd say, it just feels like the right thing to move in this direction. It feels very positive, but I think it depends on what you value. So my journey has been a bit of a kind of a continuum, like a sort of edging closer and closer towards this kind of positioning, and that I've worked for myself since 2008, and between about 2008 and 2015, I was more of a straightforward freelancer, doing kind of agency bookings, that kind of thing, with some direct clients in the mix. And then in 2015, I moved to working remotely from my own office space, and increasingly built direct brand clients that still work with agencies who are open to working in that kind of more modern way. And at each stage, as it's evolved and become more of a business rather than a sort of a single freelancer positioning, it has just been because I sort of need to and want to. So, like, particularly the idea of autonomy, being able to kind of shape your life and shape the kind of business that you want to have. And as Claire mentioned as well, like the kinds of brands or the kinds of work that you want to do. So I've been lucky to be sort of nice and busy as a freelancer. And, you know, you could say, stick here on this bit of grass, it's kind of sunny and nice. But to have that ability to potentially, you know, think, which kinds of clients am I really enjoying working with? How can I move more in that direction and have more of what I love? And then everyone's going to be happier as well, because I think it's also about kind of having that focus. So for me, it's about moving from having had that sort of just the individual positioning of myself as a freelancer, as a consultant, being nice and busy, not having updated my portfolio in years, which is kind of a bit sad when you've got stuff that you're proud of and that you want to kind of show to the world. And then about, for me, it's maybe like less about going out there initially as an agency. I'd be interested to see kind of like organizationally how things evolve for me. But for me, the real need is to go out there with a business brand and with a positioning for myself and for my business that will allow me to steer the ship a bit more and go in the direction of what I want to do, and therefore kind of give that ideal client what they really want.
Yeah, so I guess it's, you know, as you said, it's been a natural progression then over time, and it's kind of like that ability, a bit like Claire then, to deliver more services, be able to sort of service a client more holistically. That has allowed you to maybe build your network and sort of grow into that. And so, John, you know, you've obviously worked and have a community and work with a lot of freelancers. Is that something is quite typical with the freelance community? Is it something that naturally grows? Do people sort of constantly fight against, do I go bigger? Do I stay small? Like,
yeah, I mean, judging by the people who've joined the kitchen table community, there are a lot of people who are, you know, they're a sort of one-person agency. They've decided to go on the agency journey, and they've created a brand that isn't their name. Evgenia is on that path at the moment, and we've got quite a few other members who are. So I think this is a growing trend because of economic circumstances, and, you know, just people waking up to the fact, which they were before the current crisis, that actually you know, you can work from home and have a virtual agency using freelancers, and I'm a great advocate of that. Use freelancers. And make a virtue of that. You know, you make sort of the flexibility that you're giving yourself and the freelancers as part of your offer, because clients actually really like it. You know, they don't necessarily want to be hiring a large bricks and mortar agency where, you know, they know that a large part of their fee is going to be paying for the agency's overheads. And they also like, you know, they like the fact that people, you know, that agencies can deliver flexibly. I've just done an interview a while ago, and it's on the Kitchen Table Community website as a podcast, with an agency called Skin and Blister, who are two sisters who've got a healthcare agency. And, you know, and they say to clients, you know, we rerun this model and clients really like it. So be bold about that. I always say that. So don't feel that if you have, you know, a sort of a one-person agency that you can't compete. You can grow it from there. Really, you know, just be bold. That's what I'd say. I mean, I for those of you who don't know me, I have an agency, a kitchen table agency called Right Arm, which has been going a few years now. and you know, grew from nothing. And I had no background in the marketing industry at all. I mean, I didn't really know what a marketing agency was, a digital marketing agency, who became, you know, we've worked with a lot of digital marketing agencies, and I just had no clue, and sort of crashed in through the roof, you know. And it worked, and it worked back because, you know, I'd make myself sound like a genius. I was absolutely clueless when I started, but I just took the leap, and the leap of faith paid off. You know, within a few years, we were turning over $500,000 a year, and that's you know, with this idiot at the helm and a bunch of very good freelancers, it kind of works. It's a great model. So, you know, all of you listening, do it, and you know, Adam can be there as the sort of the firm hand on your rudder.
So Claire, you obviously, you know, decided to go down a route of hiring people and sort of not use the network type agile model. Just trying to think, like, you know, what, you know, thinking about maybe the hurdles that you saw ahead of you, like what did you think were going to be your biggest challenges when you started, and how does that compare to the reality of what you've seen in the last few years?
Yeah, people and money. So hiring people is a challenge. Finding the right people in the first place, finding the right culture fit, the right skill set at the right level, people who are going to, especially if it's your agency and you're used to working in a freelance environment where you have all the freedom to find people that you can trust and can align to that. I mean, that's challenging, and it takes time and can be expensive. And then the other big challenge is money. So if you're a freelancer and you're doing well, and you're probably pretty profitable, you're selling your time and you're packing out your time with projects, and you're making, you know, good money out of that, and you're probably doing pretty well, and probably you're managing quite a lean business as a freelancer without a lot of overheads. And, you know, the other challenge is, you know, when you decide to make that transition, if you decide to go into a kind of fixed agency model rather than a network of freelancer agency model, it's just taking into account the loss of margin that's going to come around as you hire people. So there's lots of kind of unexpected costs. There's hiring costs, there's hardware, software, there maybe HR platforms that you need to subscribe to. You may suddenly need to upgrade all of your project management systems. Things that were fine, you know, putting post-it notes on the wall was fine when it was just you, but now there needs to be something far more significant that everybody needs to use, and there's lots of costs. And all of that is going to eat into your margin. So what used to be a really profitable project suddenly becomes not so profitable. And so I think it's just taking all of those things into account, and before kind of making any kind of leap into doing it. The reason myself and my co-founder Dom, felt that it was right for us as two freelancers was because we had some shared clients that we knew would give us retainer. We could see the next 6 months, so we could make all of these finance and hiring judgment calls based upon a pretty strong pipeline, and that kind of made sense to us. So we did sit down and go through the kind of obstacles and challenges, and we tried to predict what they might be. We didn't manage to get all of them because obviously life is life.
I have to ask, what are the ones you didn't get then? COVID, yeah.
Global pandemic.
Can't believe you didn't plan for that.
National lockdown. Every client stopping marketing budgets. No, I mean, to be honest, it was just a few things around kind of additional costs that were required, things that we thought we could just do ourselves, which we probably couldn't do ourselves and shouldn't have done ourselves. So, for example, the branding of our agency. We, as a kind of brand, I work on the brand side of marketing and the creative strategy side of marketing, and Dom's on the advertising side, digital side. So you would have thought that I would have actually done a proper brand process on us, but obviously I didn't. Just built a website, created a brand.
Surprising a lot of agencies.
Yeah, just chucked it out there, and it was fit for purpose, and it did the job. It's done the job. We're just about to hit our 1 year anniversary birthday, and we've got this new brand that we've been working on, and we brought in a creative director, and we paid people to help us with it. And it's those type of things that you would have thought we would have known and should have done properly the first time around, but actually you can't get around it. You have to do the job properly. And so we're kind of excited to launch that in the next couple of weeks. But that's definitely something that, it was fine at the time, but if we were going to do the process properly, that transition from your freelancer brand, where you can just be yourself and hi, and perhaps even have a Gmail address, to everything else that comes with putting yourself out to the world as an agency, because suddenly you're competing in a completely different climate. You're competing with people who have a team of developers to just knock out anything that they need, and a team of creatives that are just sat there, and it's just being aware that you're now competing in a different world.
Yeah, and obviously, Mary, that's something you're going through. So, why did you feel the need to change your brand? Like, what did you not feel it was giving you that clients were looking for?
So in terms of like brand assets, pretty much the only thing I had was a portfolio that I created in, I think, the end of 2014. So it was kind of rusty, it had good work on there, but it didn't reflect where I had grown to. It was more kind of a relic from working, doing kind of agency bookings, rather than showing off kind of direct brand client projects and this kind of thing. And yeah, it was very much just a freelancer going out there to the freelance market. So I kind of almost felt like I had this kind of baggage there, or this almost like shame around, oh yeah, here's my website, but actually if you need recent examples, I'll share them with you, which is not slick. But then also the other thing was just time. So there's that thing of thinking, well, it's really good that I'm really busy. There's therefore not a really pressing need to do the portfolio right now. I'd have to kind of carve out time to do that. But then you get to that point when you think, well, no, what do you value, and what is ultimately of more value? And thinking about your time differently, and kind of how you put intention behind what you do, and thinking, no, I do even need to turn down a couple of projects maybe to take this time to create my own brand, create a proper website, create all the right decks, all the right kind of other brand assets. One, because I sort of owe it to myself in terms of, doing justice to what it is that you offer. But also because it's what I offer to clients. So there's a bit of a kind of a weird gaping hole, like elephant in the room, if as Claire says, you've got that Gmail address. Yeah, I think the thing that kind of, I needed to do it anyway, but I was always deferring, thinking, oh, I'll have the time in the future, I'll have the time in the future. And then actually Grey Matters had a blog post where it had this line, which is, the cobbler's children have no shoes. So just pointing to that fact that all of us in kind of the brand and ad world don't kind of give that care and craft and attention to our own brands. And that was kind of the moment for me when I was like, okay, I need to do this. And it was something I would do anyway, but I think it's also about having that accountability. So there's that shift as well that you've been talking to around going from like a lean model to something with a bit more kind of outgoings. And because I won't be sort of full service, I think I'm not going to have as big an organizational structure. But even just things that are new for me are things like, investing in a new business agency, investing in really great design work, investing in a developer. And I'm absolutely happy to do so, but it is a shift. It's new for me to have kind of to have outgoings, but it's also really lovely because it's that feeling of relationships that you've been building naturally over the years. So the people I'm using for that are people who I work with often, who I know we get on really well on projects, and then it's about using them to work on my own brand. So it feels quite kind of like a natural evolution.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think what we see with agencies a lot is that investment in yourself. So it's kind of like, freelancers finally get by, and that's, and they think about it from month to month, and, like Claire says, sort of generating a nice income for themselves. But I think there becomes a shift in mindset when you actually want to own the journey you're on and change from becoming reactive to very proactive, and actually investing in yourself and your future to say, this is the business I'm going to grow. These are the clients I want to win. This is the direction I'm going in, as opposed to, I just need to put food on the table and money in the bank. And I think maybe, I don't know, there's something around that, like, which I see people shift in their mindset and go, and it might be that they've either hit, a raw deal, like maybe they've been screwed over by a couple of clients, or working with people that they aren't happy with, or somebody questions their happiness and success, and they look at their portfolio of work and they think, actually, this isn't really what I set out to achieve. And I guess everyone hits that point at a different place in their life, don't they? But we all, we all want to be happy. We want to enjoy the work we're doing, and we're not doing it just for the money. So I think that shift happens. And so I'm thinking, Claire, you mentioned pipeline and, how that sort of gave you that security. And so, John, I'm just thinking about operationally, what needs to be put in place here, because you talk about this kind of network, an army of writers and freelancers. Claire's talking about a pipeline, Mary's talking about investing in the brands. Like, just talk to me about some of the operations that the agencies need to, even if you're a one-man band but need a bigger network or you're scaling up, what do you need to think about?
Well, it was a particular challenge for us with Write On because, we, as the name suggests, we do writing, and we do most of our work's ad hoc, and we probably do about 300 jobs a year, which is probably 10 times more than, the average agency, because, creative agencies tend to work on longer term projects. So it was a particular challenge for us. And both my hires, got 2 staff now, were to do the operations because it was very onerous. And although I wasn't doing any of the writing, I was constantly lining up writers, sending portfolios to clients, and making sure stuff was delivered on time, doing the invoicing, all that stuff, and it just clogged me up so much. And while the operational challenges might be less if you're doing fewer jobs per year, they'll still be considerable. And a branding job, a web build, whatever your agency might do, is actually a lot more challenging operationally than producing a white paper or something like that. So you might be doing fewer jobs, but the operational challenges could actually end up being as great. And I would really say, unless you really like that kind of management operations, make your first hire somebody to do the ops for you. And if you don't want to do a staff hire, then get somebody in who can help you part-time, or for particularly large jobs. We've had some very large jobs where I get in a project manager who's a freelancer who might be one of the writers to do it, because otherwise you'll get completely snowed under and demoralized. So that's a really important lesson for that I learned, and I didn't learn it like most of the lessons I learned. It took me quite a while. And I think what's impressive about our other panelists is that they've actually had some strategic vision. I didn't. I developed my strategic vision on the way, which it worked out all right in the end. But the more time you put in at the front end, I think the smoother your route will be.
John, could I just ask you, because I come from a project management background, so it's really interesting for me to hear you say that. Would you have considered a virtual assistant?
Yes, I would. I definitely would, and probably should have done before I made the hire. I suppose I was a bit, I was slightly nervous about the overhead, but I was also, I sort of maintained this delusion that only I could do it, that, only I knew the nuances of the business and of clients, that I would have been, it's like kind of handing over the baby, and it only is my first hire. My operations manager was actually better at all that than I was, which is an interesting lesson to learn, and a very heartening one.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking at virtual assistants and thinking about that route myself as well, and is that the route to go down? I don't know, I'm exploring it. But I think John raised an interesting point about sort of delegation and the fear of that. I don't know, Claire, you're nodding. So, who was your first hire, and how do you feel about delegation?
Rubbish at it. No, I just couldn't agree more with what you've been saying about don't underestimate the amount of not just admin but client time and non-creative work time that suddenly happens when you transition from freelancer to agency. Because there is a lot, and I think I mean, fortunately, my co-founder and myself have a great balance. So he has taken on a lot of the administrative and financial and kind of back office tasks that enables the machine to keep going, that enables me to kind of take a lead on the creative and brand and the vision of the business. And that's brilliant. And I think that's, if I didn't have a co-founder, then my first hire would have been someone who could have counteracted that balance for me. Our first hires, because we fortunately had that partnership, were therefore people who could really do the job and excel within specialisms. So a paid social manager and a paid search manager. And that was really because we looked at the pipeline and we looked at the amount of work that was being required of both of us that was distracting us from driving the agency forward. And Dominic in particular was spending a lot of time on the day-to-day management of accounts and optimizing accounts. And we identified that the value of his time was better spent in new business or pitching or building relationships or managing the back office systems and making sure that we were running as efficiently as possible. So we brought in people that could do that job for him so that he could therefore focus on what was really important. And that's kind of how we then worked out who to hire and at what level, because we said kind of what do we need people to do from us so that we can go and do what we should be doing, which is driving the agency growth.
Yes, it's interesting. It's about understanding, I guess, your value then, isn't it? Where you're best placed in the business. And just because you founded the business, it might mean that other people are better than you at maybe doing writing or creative work. And maybe your role is actually, I think that's all a bit about finding yourself. I'm even seeing that in my own business, is that, you know, I think I'd like to bring in people better than me. And I think I'm better focused in certain areas.
I mean, I struggle with delegation when it comes to the creative and actual doing the work side of things. I do struggle with delegation, but also I am more than happy to have everyone around me be way better than me. That's really what I want.
I mean, what about attracting those people? So, you know, how do you go and attract a paid social specialist when you're like a one-man band and, you know, you're working at your home office potentially, and, you know, they're thinking, why would I come work for you?
We were really, I mean, no, there was two of us, and actually we had an office at the time we were in WeWork, so there was a little bit of that kind of attraction for people to want to come and work in a cool office space. Yeah. But the way that we attracted talent was by being so honest and so transparent. So our job interviews consisted of us taking them through our 12-month and 3-year plan for the business, everything we shared with them, the vision for hiring, when we were going to be making our next hires, what our pipeline looked like, what our finances looked like. And it was very much about, do you want to buy into this? Because we're brand new, it's really exciting. We're going to get to here in 3 years. This is how we're going to get there. Do you want to be a part of this journey? And then when they signed the contract to come and join us, they were signing up to be a part of that journey rather than just coming along to work for another agency. And I think that really set everybody off on the right foot.
It's like selling them the vision, basically. Just be really transparent about, you know, who you are and what you're about. And hopefully by doing that, you'll actually attract, you know, good, honest, decent people that sort of you build that trust with, which is so important. So Mary, when you started, how did you find your first clients? What did you first do?
Yeah, so I think for me, again, it's about that kind of organic evolution, because obviously back in 2008, I was working, you know, booked on kind of your traditional way as a freelancer. And then probably around 2014, 2015, I started gaining direct clients, and that was through referrals or even through, you know, friends. So as we all get older, people rise through the ranks. You have friends who are a brand manager here or a marketing director here, or also people I worked with in agencies who then went client side, bring me in to work on their projects. So yeah, from about 2015, the emphasis has shifted from sort of 90% agency clients, 10% direct brands, to probably now like 80% direct clients, 20% agency clients. And yeah, mainly just I think good work breeds good work. So almost everything I do comes through referrals. If it's a really kind of intimate, personal referral, about 90% of the time that will convert into a project. And for me, it's when it's a bit more random. You know, if someone puts a post on LinkedIn, or I need a specialist to help with X, and someone mentions my name there, 90% of the time that doesn't happen. Because, you know, they've then got 30 to 50 names. You know, why would yours kind of rise to the top? There isn't that kind of personal recommendation. So in terms of transitioning to going from an individual brand to a name that isn't mine, as John mentioned, I will bring my clients with me. But also what it will allow me to do is to kind of go out there and actively approach clients that might be a good fit, to be a bit more kind of proactive. And that's something I've been looking at with Grey Matters. So kind of how do you approach brands you would aspire to work with, and how do you use the collateral of, you know, similar projects that you've loved, that you worked on recently, to demonstrate to those new potential clients, here's what I did for X, here's what I could do for you. So I think that will be the shift for me. I'll bring clients with me, but I can also then be more proactive and a bit more kind of aspirational.
Yeah, so it's a sort of confidence thing as well. And what other things, like from a sales and marketing perspective, you know, have you guys put in place, you know, any of you, just to grow your businesses? What's been successful in that?
Well, sorry, John.
Either, yeah.
Go on, John.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know that. Right. Well, two things have been. Well, first of all, you've got to get your proposition right, and there's no point in doing any sales and marketing until you've done that. You've really got to have a laser sharp proposition that's going to, you know, it's going to make people prick up their ears. And you know, this is, you know, Adam's got a lot of wisdom to share on this, I know. But two things that particularly work for us: email marketing. We've used the prospecting company to great effect, but also more recently a sharply focused pay-per-click campaign. We're doing Google ads using some long tail keywords. It's interesting. I stupidly, one of the many stupid mistakes I've made over the years, was doing a pay-per-click campaign on some very common terms like copywriter, copywriting agency, content agency, and it brought us some business. And then, you know, most of our business at the moment is in tech and fintech in particular. So we redid the campaign focusing on the longer tail keywords, on, you know, based around tech and fintech, and it's worked wonders. It's really worked wonders. But you know, I think really all of you, you know, take advice from people like Adam. Get your proposition sorted, because that is the bedrock. You know, the bedrock of any marketing. That there's no point if, you know, if you're just another agency who will work for anyone and, you know, do whatever, then it's going to be an uphill struggle. As soon as you've got a sharp proposition and you've really defined your audience, your prospective clients, you know, the job titles, the sectors, and so on, then you're on a much easier route.
Yeah, and Claire, what have you sort of put in place as well to sort of grow?
So for the past year, we've done very little marketing, because we're, as I say, we're about to start that drive in the next couple of weeks with the new brand. So for the past year with the agency, it's been very much about network and referrals, and we've got quite a strong network within the sectors in which we operate. And so that's been fine. And it's, you know, generally that is the story, isn't it? You know, as Mary says, you do good work, and therefore you get more good work, and you get recommendations and things like that. So working hard at the network is really, really important, not just becoming to rely on that. We've done a little bit of email prospecting too, but then COVID hit, and so we decided to stop harassing people with emails. But we were starting to really get some pickup on that as well. The other thing I find really interesting is that agencies can learn a lot from freelancers. Freelancers go out there with their own identity, their own individuality. They sell their personality, and that's what stands them apart. Their ability to understand a client really well, to dip into their brand, to be on call, to be flexible, all of those things, and to be a great person to work with. Agencies retain freelancers because they want to work with that individual and that person. And agencies need to learn about that. And I think that's what I've been really doing over the past few weeks or a few months, particularly through lockdown, is to embody that personality, to be myself, so that they're not just buying an agency facade, they're buying into Clair Heaviside and my own personality. And that's something else that I think, you know, freelancers go and just do that without thinking about it. But agencies are definitely going to need to learn from that. So I've started a podcast. Everyone's got a podcast these days, but I've got one as well. And, you know, trying to get myself out there by doing talks and giving value, sharing experiences, but giving value to clients as well, and good, valuable information that makes them buy into me. And I think as a freelancer, you're probably really great at that anyway. You just do it naturally. But I think, to be honest, for me, that's kind of going to be a big part of our future marketing strategy. It's all about building the personal brand as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's such a good point. You know, when we work with agencies on their proposition and thinking about that, is that, you know, we always look at it from an emotional and a rational perspective, and we think that a lot of agencies get the rational okay, and they don't get the emotional at all. And they kind of go out to market, and you think, everyone asks me, you know, what differentiates an agency one to another? And yes, you've got certain, you know, propositions, service offerings, different things like that. But more so often than not, when the agencies are coming so converged in what they offer, but to you know, across the spectrum, it's the people that make them stand out. And, you know, how many of those people do you see their sort of personality and their point of views come through all of their marketing and all of their website? I think very little. You know, you go to a website and it's dry, it's rational, it's Ronseal, and there's no real emotion behind it. And I think, you know, even, you know, Claire, we don't know each other that well. We only know each other through networking. So I think it's even been effective in the way it's attracted me to what you're doing, because I've seen you on podcasts, and I've seen you vocal, and I've seen you sharing opinion, I've seen your photo, and that makes me interested in you and wanting to know your story. And that's why you're on this call today. So it does work. And I think a lot of people need to invest in their personal brands. And I think a lot of people need to think about what their opinion is, and not just sort of sit on the fence, basically, and be able to share that. So yeah, I think proposition, obviously massively important. I don't know if you guys got anything else to share on that, or new business, but I was then going to ask about pricing. You know, how do you go and price yourselves, and where do you start with that stuff? Like, you know, you're not an agency, maybe you don't have the overheads. Do you just go in low and just go really cheap to start off, or do you go?
I think for me, there's kind of three things. There's the value of the project to the client. So how much value you're going to bring. It doesn't matter about time, but, you know, how much money is this going to generate for the client? There's the cost of the project to you to do. So you've got to make sure that it covers, and you can work that out by how much time it's going to spend. And then there's how profitable you want to make the project. How profitable you can make the project. And sometimes that comes from a comparison of market rate. So there's a lot of different kind of things to consider. Because I've worked in agencies before, so I'm used to costing at a larger independent agency rate. I kind of know what the market rate is, and I can judge that client. I know what conversations they're used to having around price. So I know what kind of framework we're working within. So that's a good place to start. And then I can think about, right, what's it actually going to cost us to do? So I know what we have to charge per hour to cover our costs. And I know how many hours we need to do in a month to cover our costs. And then I think, right, okay, in terms of the value we're going to be able to bring to this client, that I'm confident we'll be able to bring to this client, this is a fair way of assessing what our margin can be. And that's kind of how we get to the cost. And that's kind of a conversation to have right at the beginning, when we're kind of working out as an agency how we're going to position ourselves and what type of clients we want and what budgets they've got. But then that kind of falls down into not so much a rate card, but at least a flexible guideline of a rate card, so that we know generally what we're charging per hour for what type of services. And that at least gives us a framework. But it's always flexible, because particularly in the past few months, and let's think about it going forward, we're about to go and hit a recession. Clients are still going to be suffering. We still do not yet know what the long lasting impact of lockdown and COVID will be, we've kind of put a rate card on hold, and there's been some clients where we've really just gone right down to the minimum for them, just to retain them and keep them going and help them survive, because we know out the other side we're going to rise with them. And there's been other clients, e-com clients in particular, who have been flying over the past few months because everybody's been at home just shopping online, buying all sorts of nonsense. So we've been able to do wonderful things with them, and they've had their best months ever. And again, it's about just trying to judge where that client is positioned to, how valuable they're going to be to you in the long term. And if this is a long-term relationship, how much am I prepared to invest, and how much am I prepared to take a hit on my margin to be able to survive with them on the long term. So there's no fixed answer, I'm afraid, but there's a lot of things to take into account.
No, I like the costing of the client and the value and the way you look at pricing. And do you show one price, or do you go with multiple prices? Do you give options when you?
I've never really given options. And I know in my old agency we used to kind of do, you know, bronze, silver, gold type of options. But actually, for me, if you've gone through the process properly and you've thought about the value and you've thought about time and you know what your minimum, you know, the minimum you can do the project for, and you know what value you're adding, really that should give you the cost of the project. And if the client wants the project and understands the value, they'll pay the cost of the project. If they don't, they're probably going to be a pain of a client, and you probably don't want to work with them anyway. They're not right for you.
Yeah.
Mary, how do you price it? You know, do you have a standard rate card you share, or do you sort of wait to get the brief and scope the work? And
yeah, so I have a day rate, but I will use that day rate to cost the project in almost all cases. And then I think the shift with me with this kind of transition is kind of for the last kind of handful of years, my rate has been higher than a freelancer, but obviously not at an agency level. And I think the shift for me will be, so the kind of, my offering is quite focused. I work on creative strategy and copywriting. So until recently, I've used the same rate for both of those kind of phases of work. So then often almost like people can get really high level strategy, but at actually a really good price. So I think the main shift for me in terms of pricing will be to kind of carve out and sort of position those two offerings as complementary, but also, you know, separate phases in a project, and to command a higher price for the creative strategy work, which I think is also, I think that will feel really good because it's something that I love doing. It's something that clients really respond to, and I think they really understand the value of it. But until recently, I haven't fully been kind of charging for that value. So I think that will be the main shift for me in terms of price. And I think I will actually kind of create a branded rate card that I share, and be quite transparent. These are the day rates, but they're used to cost a project. Because I often find clients want to kind of understand not just what does an individual project cost, but in terms of working with you long term, they want to kind of have a feel for like how much would X get me in a way. So then they can start to sort of, you know, feel confident about kind of future engagements. So yeah, that's the main shift for me.
It certainly makes you easier to buy, doesn't it, when you package like that? But you know, the amount of agencies I speak to that do not charge for strategy, time, and thinking. Yeah. And you know, when I used to work, you know, some of the guys were cool. Will know back at like Isobar, you know, strategy was rate. You know, Tony, Paul, that the rate cards and strategy work was much higher, or a creative director was much higher than it was, you know, for an account manager, or you know, different levels of what you're talking about here. So I think that's fair enough.
Your price also positions you is the other point as well. So I work with quite a lot of sort of not ultra premium, but sort of, you know, almost like high end, high street kind of consumer brands, or also in the B2B world, more kind of consultancy style brands. Yeah, I think if you really believe in the value and quality of what you do, it kind of commands a higher price, and also to be confident about that price helps early in the conversation for people to understand the value that you're going to bring, the quality that you're going to bring, and the fact that you are kind of differentiated.
And don't be afraid to put your price up. I think, you know, I think a lot of people just stay at the same price. I don't know, John, have you seen that at all in terms of pricing and like I would typically think, you know, most businesses should be putting their prices up every year. You know, you're more experienced, you know, the cost of living, inflation, everything goes up. You're delivering more. Why everyone else is doing it? Why shouldn't you?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. That said, I completely agree with Claire on, you know, you just have to intuit what the client will bear cost wise. And what we do, and it might not be appropriate to all agencies, is we say, look, we've got a wide range of writers, and we can always find one to fit a reasonable budget. But you know, if your budget is for a Ford, you're not going to get Rolls Royce. But the other thing two other things to say. Firstly, you know, be bold. Ask what their budget is, and you know, they can only say we're not going to tell you or we don't know. But often they'll tell you, and that makes life a lot easier. And you know at that point whether you can be able to help them or not. And I would say if their budget's really lousy, walk away, or refer them to a freelancer who can do it for them. You know, keep the relationship sweet. And one way of doing that is referring them to a freelancer who can do it. But you know, walk away if you have to. Don't go rock bottom if you can't turn a decent profit from it. But the other thing, really important, and you know, Claire was driving in this direction, is price in your future overheads. You know, because if you start off working on a 20% gross margin, you know, by the time you've made a couple of hires, or you know, you've bought in some software, or you know, some support services, that 10%, that 20% is, you know, been eroded to almost nothing. So go, you know, really think about that. I mean, we try for we don't always get it, but you know, we try for a gross margin of 40. And you should be aiming for at least the same. I don't know what your advice on that is, Adam, and you have more agency experience than I do, but you know, don't be shy about your gross margin.
Yeah, I mean, it really does vary. A guy I spoke to yesterday aims for 65. So you know, I think it's just, I think it's all about value, and also it comes a lot in your proposition, how you sell yourself, how you're perceived. You know, if you're seen as premium. You know, if you're very commoditized in the way you sell yourself, and you're just listing out your services on your website, and it's kind of like, you know, very clickbait content and buy now, then you're going to restrict the how you can charge for yourself. If you look at AKQA's site, for example, you know, it just from their positioning and the way they brand themselves demands a certain price and quality. So yeah, but I agree. I think a lot of people get caught out with that overhead thing. They don't. Just the time management, you know, the minute you leave the call and then you've got to book the diary time in and then get the spreadsheet out and you're putting all these things in, and it's suddenly like, oh, actually, you think you've spent 4 hours doing something. You haven't. You've spent 8 hours. And that time management piece is just so important, even like with it, whether it's project management, whether it's new business. People are, especially when you're not held accountable and you're your own business, people are not aware of where they're spending their time. And we see that across the board, you know, and how, you know, I've had to sort of, my system now is to block out things in my diary. And when I say things, I mean everything. So, you know, it's literally like, you know, if I have to write an email to someone, if I have to do that, it goes in the diary and it blocks out time. And that way I'm sort of aware of kind of where I'm spending my time a lot more. And I know obviously there's lots of, you know, time management software and things out there. Like we use Harvest sometimes, but, yeah, I think it's really important to look at the price. So then just going on to think about, you know, quality of life and things like that, and just thinking about maybe the impacts on the sort of mental health and starting an agency. And obviously, it's not always for the faint-hearted. You know, there's financial, you know, risks and challenges and pressures that you're going to naturally put on yourselves. But there's also the counterbalance of working from home and all this kind of stuff. Like, I don't know, maybe start with you, Claire. Like, how has it affected your mental health and the journey you've been on, and sort of, are you a happier person?
I'm happy. I was, you know what, I was happy as a freelancer and I'm happy as an agency owner. I was happy in both scenarios. I was happy when I was working for an agency as well. I found great self-satisfaction from being a freelancer. I was really proud of the work I was doing. It was some of my best work, and that was very, very fulfilling to me. And now as an agency owner, I'm still able to do great work, but there's also other things that I find really fulfilling. So the collaboration side of things, the sense of being a part of something, the sense that we're all in it together, having people to lift me up when I'm having a down day, or when I've had a particularly difficult conversation with a client, knowing that somebody else can step in and support me. And actually, I think that support network, particularly over the past few months, we've all been through our own challenges, I've really benefited from in terms of my own mental health. And I just think, it would have been very difficult for those of you that are freelancers now to imagine it would be really challenging over the past few months to have to deal with that on your own, unless you're part of a really great network of freelancers. So yeah, to me, I think mental health wise, the challenges and stress and pressure of having to pay wages every month and making sure I'm making the right decisions for the business, that's difficult. But because I've got a great relationship with my team and I've got a good support network, I would say for me, this is the best scenario for me. Although, I was happy as a freelancer too. I'm happy.
Just a happy person.
I'm a happy person. I'm not always a happy person. I wasn't a happy person yesterday. I had some really difficult calls to make and it was horrible. So it's good that you got me today.
So all part of it, isn't it?
Exactly, right?
But I guess it can get, John, it can get a bit lonely, no? And how do you sort of maybe deal with that?
It can. I mean, I pre-COVID, I was 1 day a week in London meeting clients and prospects, which is great. I have a desk, although I call myself a kitchen table agency, I actually have a desk in a shared space, which is nice, bit of camaraderie. But, I mean, am I happy? Yeah, absolutely. And, I've built in the flexibility I sought for myself in setting up this agency, which, is because I had a young child. I absolutely reflect in what we offer to clients. So, I'd say that's really important. Set, what you're doing for yourself in setting up an agency, try and wear that inside out and offer it to your clients, also the people who work for you. But this, it's brilliant. I really recommend setting up an agency rather than just remaining freelance, because you have a certain amount of freedom when you're freelance, but not that much, If you're sort of inundated with work, then you could be working all hours. When you've got an agency, although you can be working a lot, you also, you delegate, you're at the helm of an organization, and it's an organization that ultimately you're running for your own benefit. And you can, I have a lot more time than I used to have as a freelancer. I have a lot more flexibility, and it's given me, don't be ashamed about calling it a lifestyle business. We all want all businesses are lifestyle businesses, just some of us are more honest about it than others, and some lifestyle businesses lead to a good lifestyle, and I believe this does, and some lifestyle businesses lead to a bad lifestyle. Choose the right lifestyle.
Yeah, definitely. And Mary, what about you? Like, how have you been finding working from home, and is that just second nature to you and your network? Do they support you?
So I've been working from home since 2015. So it's sort of not too different for me the last few months. But yeah, at that time in 2015, I hugely experienced like the benefit of that, just in terms of well-being. You can create a really lovely morning routine instead of being like squashed like a sardine on a tube. And a morning routine that actually, one, supports you and your day, but also your business. So you kind of come to a call like feeling good rather than kind of too frazzled or that kind of thing. I think the shift for me now is I've always found my work meaningful because of that focus on kind of creativity, ideas and writing. If you can be doing something where you can get into kind of that feeling of flow, you're going to be, feeling good. But I think, we all want to sort of like thrive as well. And I guess I understand just psychologically that the way to be happy in your work is to have that sense of meaning and purpose behind your work. So for me, like, even though it's a business tool, doing a brand positioning and a business positioning and working what is the purpose of this brand, it will serve a really strong commercial process, but it also, I hope, will like unlock, even better levels of well-being, because, you know, if you've got really clear on what is your purpose in your work in 3 to 4 words, and it aligns with the purpose of your life and what's meaningful to you, that's going to feel really good. And obviously there's always going to be stressful moments, there's stressful decisions. And actually, since I've been working on this stuff and sort of cooking it in a way, the last couple of months, I've turned down some projects that previously, with a bit of like a hustle mentality, I might have tried to make work, but the fit might not have been quite right. But I've been much more true to myself and thinking, okay, this brand positioning, this purpose isn't out there yet, but I'm kind of starting to embody it. How do I make decisions based on this? And I think that's hugely helpful to kind of, you know, steer your course. So yeah, I can only see the sort of the new levels of autonomy being more beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. And I think work and life is, you know, I think COVID's pushed that almost too close together, but certainly it's been happening over the past sort of 5 to 10 years. And I feel like business is just one sort of introspective journey of finding yourself. And I think the more you kind of put yourself into your business and bring them together to, like what John said, create a lifestyle that you're happy and feel fulfilled around, then you'll be successful, no matter what it looks like. Cool. Has anyone else got any other questions? Just conscious of time. But if not, I'll just ask you this one question. What's one piece of advice you would give someone setting up an agency now? And is now a good time to be doing it, given what's been going on out there? Go on, John.
Do you want me to go first?
Go
okay. Well, absolutely, now is the right time. It's, you know, we're in for a terrible recession, possibly depression, but it is the right time to do it, because you can be more flexible, you can be more competitive. In terms of advice, there's 2 bits. Firstly, blatant plug. I've done a book called The Kitchen Table Method, which is a sort of guerrilla guide to setting up your own agency. But more importantly, listen to Adam and people like him. You know, the massive font of wisdom, and you should be tapping into that. I mean, you know, few people know this world better, and listen to them and get that advice.
Thank you, John. Girls, you got anything else to share about now?
From my perspective, it's just to take yourself seriously and write a business plan. Go through the process of writing a business plan. Don't just think it's about turning off on Freelancer and turning on agency. Have a look at your pipeline, look at your vision, where do you want to be? And by going through the process, you might write the business plan and then decide, actually, not for me, this. I don't want to do this. I can make more money and live a better life as a freelancer. But by doing that process, you'll learn a lot. It'll give you the direction, and it'll give you the confidence of what the next step is. So yeah, right plan.
Thank you. Mary, anything to add? Are we good?
Yeah, so mine would be similar. You spoke about kind of the emotional side and the rational side, and I'd say just make sure you go with both, you know? Kind of work out what is your purpose, what is your vision, what feels good to you, what kind of life do you want to have, but also create all those assets that you need, kind of go through all those commercial processes. And I think if you're kind of hitting both of those, you can't go wrong.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, thank you for your time. Right on the hour, 1 minute over. But that was really good. I'll share the content and I'll get that up online. And yeah, if you've got any other questions, John's got the Kitchen Table Method. We run mastermind groups. You know, there's lots of support out there. You know, Chris runs Agency Local. All different sorts of useful resources out there to get you going. And so hopefully I'll see you progress on your own journeys. All right.
Wonderful.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Thank you.
Bye.